Greetings to everyone who is watching this live view. I am Dr. Mema from South Africa. I will be talking today about disease. What I want us to talk about is to look at disease, and my topic is to look at disease, a friend or foe. A friend or foe. Before I start with my talk, I would like to just read a verse from the book of Exodus, chapter 15, verses 25. And said, that is the Lord, and said, if thou wilt diligently hearken to the voice of the Lord thy God, and wilt do that which is right in his sight, and will give ear to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, I will put none of these diseases which I have brought upon the Egyptians, for I am the Lord that healeth thee. Now, I want us to understand something here. When the Lord gave this instruction to the children of Israel, it was not long after they had left Egypt. It was not long after they had seen the judgments of the Lord upon the Egyptians. Remember, God had sent Moses to go and deliver the children of Israel under the arm or the heavy arm of Pharaoh. Now, when Pharaoh's heart was hardened, God had no choice but to bring or to rain upon the Egyptians the judgments, to rain upon the Egyptians some diseases of which the Israelites were spared from those diseases. Now, God says to Israel, if you will diligently hearken to the voice of the Lord thy God, I will do that which is right, and will give ear to his commandments, and keep all his statutes. I will put none of these diseases which I have brought upon the Egyptians. So there is a condition here that we have. It shows that God has given certain statutes, he has given certain commandments, he has given some instructions to the children of Israel that they need to follow. Failing to follow those instructions, God is promising them that the judgments that befell the Egyptians, they will come upon the Israelites. Now, I want us to understand that when God rained the 10 plagues in Egypt, it was not funny. It was not something to laugh about. The Israelites, I want to believe that they were hiding in their land with fear and trembling as they saw what was happening upon the Egyptians. Brothers and sisters, let me say to you, ladies and gentlemen, that water is it's a blessing from the Lord. Blood is a blessing from the Lord, especially pure blood. But you don't want water to be where blood is supposed to be, and you don't want blood to be where water is supposed to be. And one of the first of the 10 plagues was blood being where water was not supposed to be. That is disease, ladies and gentlemen. Disease is not a new phenomenon. It is not a new thing to look upon. It is something that was there in the biblical times, in the olden times. Disease has been there. And amphibians, which is the frogs, it's good to have frogs in your rivers, in your forests, in your gardens, wherever you are. But when frogs start to creep into houses, then they become a nuisance. They become a problem upon humanity. And this is exactly what happened to the children of Israel. Now, lice is something else. I remember when I was still a young boy, we used to have lice because we grew up in a village under poverty-stricken villages. So when we grew up, it was not a rare thing to actually find boys full of lice. And I was one of those who were full of lice because we're from a very poverty-stricken environment. And I remember the way the lice were so torturing us, we will even take broom and spray our heads, and that will bring us even more torture. That is disease, ladies and gentlemen. Those are the diseases that were experienced by the Egyptians. And God says, if Israel, if only they will hearken unto the voice of the Lord and keep the statutes and the commandment, none of these diseases will be allowed upon Israel, is the Israelites. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, the flies, we know nobody likes to see flies, but amongst the Egyptians, flies became a nuisance so much that every corner had flies. Every corner had flies. So you can imagine what was happening. God says, if Israel will obey the voice of the Lord, flies will not be a problem for them. We do remember when the cows died of sickness in the among the children of the cows of the Egyptians died of sickness. This was an experience that Israelites, they only watched from a distance. They saw what was happening. Now God is saying to them, if you obey my voice and you do and you follow my statutes, I will not allow these diseases which I have brought upon the Egyptians to fall upon you. There were problems like boils, for example, that had befallen the children of the Egyptians. And God says, I will not allow boils to fall upon you if you follow my statutes. I will not allow them. I will protect you. I will cover you. I will make sure that everything you are saved from these sicknesses of the Egyptians. That's the promise of the Lord that is bringing upon them. There were problems like darkness. We know that darkness and disease are friends. Darkness and disease are friends. So God says, I will not allow darkness to fall upon you. Darkness that is going to bring upon you misery and torture and all these things that the Egyptians felt when you were in Egypt. I will not allow them to befall you. Then ultimately, we know that disease, ultimately, it ends with death, brothers and sisters. It ends with death. Now, like I said, that what we want to establish here is whether disease is a friend or a foe. We'll talk more on that. Now, let's observe what God is saying. He says, I am the Lord that healeth thee. I am the Lord that healeth thee. It means, therefore, that God is the one who is able to heal disease and sickness. Now, I want us to understand, ladies and gentlemen, that God is the one who created man out of the dust of the earth. He is the one who made these bodies to what they ought to be. It is the very same God who says to you and to me that I will heal you. And I am the one who heals you when disease falls upon you. Now, what is the implication of this statement that God is saying? When he says, I am the one that healeth you, what does this statement imply? It says, if they were rebellious and disobedient, the very plagues which they had seen inflicted upon their enemies should be brought upon them. If they fail to obey God's commands, if they fail to follow the laws of the Lord, if they fail to follow the statutes of the Lord, God is promising them that he is no respecter of persons. That which befell upon the Egyptians shall befall upon his children. It shall befall upon his people. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to say to you, God is saying, if we fail to obey and if we fail to follow his statutes, the diseases of the Egyptians shall fall upon his children, or they shall fall upon his people. He says, I am the Lord that healeth thee. I will take care of thy comfort wherever thou goest. I will take care of thy comfort wherever thou goest. God is the great physician. If we be kept well, it is he that keeps us. If we be made well, it is he that restores us. He is our life and the length of our days. That's what God is to us, ladies and gentlemen. Now, look at the fifth plague that befell the children of Israel. It says, Pharaoh sent his officials to investigate, and they discovered that the Israelites had not lost a single animal. But even so, Pharaoh's heart remained stubborn, and he still refused to let the people go. I don't know how many of us today that know what they need to do with their health, that are failing to follow the statutes of the Lord, that are failing to take care of their bodies, that are failing to follow what God has given us in the health message that God has given to us. How many of us are failing to follow that? And God is saying, if you fail, these same diseases shall befall upon us. And it says, the Israelites, when Pharaoh went to investigate, none of the cattle or of the animals of the Israelites had died. None of the animals of the Israelites had died in all that death that was taking place in Egypt. God saved his children. God saved his people. That very same God, ladies and gentlemen, that saved the children of Israel, even though there was disease were in the land in which they dwelt, but God saved them. He is the same God that can save us today. He is the same God who has power to let disease fall, but it will not touch his people. Moreover, he will bring upon thee all the diseases of Egypt, which thou wast afraid of, and they shall cleave unto thee. Also, every sickness and every plague which is not written in the book of the law, them will the Lord bring upon thee, until thou be destroyed, and it shall be left in few in number, whereas you were as the stars of heaven for multitude. Because thou, this is the reason, because thou wouldest not obey the voice of the Lord thy God. Why would disease fall upon God's children? It is because they have failed to observe the voice of the Lord, or to obey the voice of the Lord. I want us to look into this. It says, they shall cleave unto thee. When something cleaves, it means it attaches to you. It clings on you. It sticks on you, which means the diseases that you were supposed to only see with your eyes are going to come and cleave on you, because you have created an environment that will allow them to cling on you. You have created an environment that will allow sickness to stick on you. Now, it says also, every sickness and every plague, which is not written in the book of this law, disease which is not written in the book of this law, them will the Lord bring upon thee. In other words, disease that you think you know, there are diseases that are not written in the book of the law that are still yet to come. There are diseases that are not in the book of the law that can still come and befall upon you, upon us, if we do not obey the laws or the statutes, and we do not follow the statutes of God. So God is promising us that if we fail to follow his statutes, these diseases shall befall us. And it says, you will be left few in number. You will be left few in number, I don't want to talk about this, ladies and gentlemen, because I am sure all of us, we are still licking wounds from what has been happening since 2020. We are still licking wounds, as some of us are still bleeding. Some of us have not still healed. Some of us are still going through tough times. Even as I speak now, there are people that are still going through difficulties because of diseases that come that are not even in the book of the law. So in other words, new diseases will continue to come. New diseases will continue to appear. New diseases, God is going to let loose of sickness and disease, so much that we will be left few in number because we are failing to follow and to obey the statutes of the Lord. It says, because thou wouldest not obey the voice of the Lord thy God. It is our stubbornness, ladies and gentlemen. It is our stubbornness. It is our failure to listen to the voice of God that sometimes brings upon us this so much sickness and disease. Now, God's judgment upon Egypt as they were messages to Israel, opening the way to their deliverance. So they were warnings to Israel and designed to awe them into obedience. These judgments that God brought upon the Egyptians, they were meant to be warnings upon the Israelites. I don't know, but I have noticed that lately people are becoming more and more aware and more concerned about the importance of health. And I think disease has taught us and it continues to teach us the importance of following the laws of health. It is continuing to teach us the importance of obeying the voice of the Lord. It is continuing to teach us that it is us who sometimes bring upon ourselves diseases. It says these diseases were meant to be a warning to the children of Israel. They were meant to be a call back to the children of Israel, back to the Lord, back to the statutes, back to obedience, back to the commandments of God. They were meant to draw the children of Israelites back to God. They were meant to draw so that they can see that you will not survive without God if you do not obey God. Diseases of the Egyptians, they shall come upon you. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to believe that none of us want to see disease near to us. We do not want to see sickness. We do not want to see disease coming to us. We want to avoid sickness. We want to avoid disease with everything and with every power that we have. And God says, if you want to avoid diseases, obey my statutes. If you want to avoid diseases, obey my commandments. If you want to avoid diseases, follow my laws. That's what God is saying to the children of Israel. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about what typically we will do when disease befall men. Today, we have many schools of medicine. Today, we have different views about the cause of disease. Today, we have different understandings of what disease what brings about disease upon humanity. They all, even though we have all these different schools of medicine, we have all these different schools of cure and everything, there is one thing that we all agree upon, that disease is an unmitigated evil. In other words, it is an evil. It is something that humanity wants to avoid by every means possible. It is something that does not bring about positive results. That's what we agree upon as medical practitioners. It does not matter which school you come from, but we are all in agreement that disease is an unmitigated evil. Symptoms of disease are destructive and must be suppressed or cured. That is the belief of the different schools of medicine, that the symptoms, immediately you see the symptoms of disease, run and suppress them or cure them and deal with disease is as it emerges, deal with disease as it appears. Symptoms of disease must be suppressed. That's what we believe. That's what many schools of medicine believe in nowadays. Now, it is also a fact, ladies and gentlemen, that many schools of medicine are hunting for symptoms. When we are talking about disease, we hunt for symptoms. We go for that fever that we see. When we see that you have a high fever, we charge for it and we take it down. When we see that you are fatigued, we energize you, we give you energy. We give you a product that is going to bring energy upon you. We fight it, and we want to make sure that that symptom is dealt with immediate effect. When we see chest pains, we immediately run for that symptom and we deal with it. We feel achy joints. We go for that and we deal for those ache joints. We take painkillers, we take everything in order to suppress or to cure the symptoms of disease. When we see mouth ulcers, we want something that can eradicate those ulcers with immediate effect. Kidney disease, weight loss, other skin rashes and swollen ankles, everything that we see when we look at disease, we look at disease in terms of the symptoms that we see appear, and we want to deal with the symptoms of the disease. Generally, there is a serious fear of symptoms in medicine. It is a fact, ladies and gentlemen, that we are so afraid of symptoms. There is a general fear. The minute you feel pain, you want immediately something that will help you quench or cure or suppress that pain. We do not want to feel pain. It is a fact of medicine. In our days, it is a fact of medicine that we all go through. When you feel headache, you want to suppress it. But what we want to establish here is that headache an enemy or is it your friend? We want to establish whether the pain is your enemy or is it your friend. Those achy joints, those chest pains, that fatigue, is it an enemy or is it your friend? Those mouth ulcers, that swollen ankles, that skin rash, is it your enemy or is it your friend? That's what we're going to establish at the end of this series. Disease, a friend or foe. Now, ladies and gentlemen, in an attempt to treat disease, as doctors, they will go for symptoms with a hammer and tongue. We go for symptoms with hammer and tongue. The body is forced to behave in the manner that doctors believe it should. In other words, I know you should not have this temperature. Normal temperature is 37, 39 is problematic. We give you a pill to take it down with immediate effect. I know that you have this problem. When you have this symptom, we need to give you something to take it down. So the body is forced to behave in the manner in which doctors believe it should behave. So if it is behaving outside the scale that is understood by medical practitioners, that must be dealt with immediate effect in terms of the medical practitioners. But is disease a friend or is it a foe? This is because disease is seen as a destructive, anarchistic manifestation which must be combated or subdued. So when you look at disease, we immediately see an enemy that comes to destroy, that comes to bring problems upon life. Therefore, this must be dealt with immediate effect, and it must be destroyed. It must be subdued. It must be combated. That is the approach that we have in medicine. Now, if disease is antagonistic, ladies and gentlemen, if disease is antagonistic, is an antagonistic element of any nature and has succeeded in making a successful attack upon the body, what possible chance would the legal remnant of life have for recovery in the absence of saving treatment. Now, what does this statement mean? If disease is here to destroy, if disease is here to antagonize, if it is here to bring upon problems, once disease attaches itself to human life, what chances are there for recovery without a saving treatment, without getting a pill, without getting some form of treatment? What are the chances of having, of being saved from such an antagonistic element without treatment? Yes, there are numerous cases that have recovered in the absence of treatment or after treatment has been abandoned. If disease is an enemy, why would someone recover from an antagonistic enemy without a treatment? Why would you recover from a sickness without having taken any treatment? And there are many cases of people that they could give us, even their examples, that they have recovered from sickness, they have recovered from disease without taking any treatment, without taking any medication. What was the presence of disease doing in such situations? This is my beloved dog. His name is Buffy. As you can see, he loves to be scratched. He loves to be taken care of. He's quite old. He's probably 3 years this year. He loves to be taken care of. He enjoys being puffed and scratched and rubbed and brushed. Immediately you approach him, he sleeps on the floor. He wants you to massage him and all that. This is our dog. We love this dog, ladies and gentlemen. But what is the problem with Buffy? He is epileptic. He is epileptic. His epilepsy comes once in a while. That's my Buffy. The first time we realized that Buffy is epileptic, we did not know. We just saw him jerking, and jerking. And we ran around like headless chicken trying to save Buffy. We did everything. I remember my wife and my daughter, they even prayed upon Buffy because we were not used to what we saw. So it was a problem that we saw upon Buffy until, as we were praying, the Holy Spirit whispered to us that we should let Buffy alone. When this attack comes upon him, and we should leave him, and Buffy will jerk and he will stop and he will be fine. From that moment, every time Buffy jerks, we know that he is going to recover. We relax and we just try to make sure that he is comfortable. He does not get any injuries from any outside elements. We watch for him and we look at him jerking and jerking. He always recovers well from such an attack without any problem. Now, ladies and gentlemen, Buffy recovers. He recovers from epilepsy. Buffy recovers. We don't even give him any treatment. We don't give any water. We don't give anything. If disease is antagonistic, how come would Buffy get back and come back again if disease is antagonistic? According to Thomas Sydenham, this is an English hypocrite. He says, disease is nothing more than an effort of nature, who strains with might and main to restore the health of the patient by the elimination of the morbific matter. Now, I want you to understand this statement. Thomas is saying disease is nothing more than an effort of nature. In other words, it is an effort of nature that has come up with strength, that has come up with everything that it has to restore health. That's what disease is. It says it is an effort of nature to restore health of the patient by elimination of morbific matter. In other words, by the elimination of toxins. So disease comes in order to eliminate the morbific matter. Disease comes in order to eliminate toxic matter from the body. This is another definition from another writer, Ellen G. White, Mrs. White. The prophetess, Mrs. White, says, disease is an effort of nature to free the system from conditions that result from a violation of the laws of health. Whose are the laws of health? Ask yourself that question. The laws of health come from God. Whose are the laws of health? The laws of health come from God directed to us. Now, this definition says disease is an effort of nature. It is an effort. It is a nature's struggle. It is a nature's rising up against a condition that has been brought about by violation of the laws of health. So it is an effort. I want us to understand this. I want this to sink in our mind that disease is an effort of nature to free this bodily system from conditions that result from violation of the laws of health. Now, violation. When you talk violation, it means it's a law. Violation, it means we have violated. Remember, God says, if you violate, if you disobey my statutes, I will let the disease of the Egyptians to come upon you. Now, for a minute, I want us to just talk mechanics. Let's talk mechanics for a while. Now, I just want to check what could be the cause of the smoke that comes from the engine pipe, from the exhaust. It says, while smoke can be a big problem, or white smoke can be a big problem or not, depending on the thickness. White smoke from the car can be a big problem, depending on the thickness. The white smoke is the result of normal condensation, which builds up inside the exhaust. Now, I was just checking with mechanics what happens when the car has a problem of smoking. Now it says it is a normal condensation which builds up inside the exhaust system. So if it is thin like vapor, there is nothing to worry about since it will disappear quickly. Look at this. Smoke is not a good sight from a car. Smoke, it is something that everyone wants to avoid from his automobile. Now, this definition says, if you have a vapor-like smoke, there is nothing to worry about. It will disappear. But there is a smoke. I want us to understand there is a smoke that is coming up. So which means the smoke that is coming is actually the clearing of a problem. It is a normal condensation which builds up in the exhaust system. It is a normal condensation which builds up in the exhaust system. So there is a problem, but this problem will be fixed by the smoke, by this light smoke that comes out of the exhaust. On the other hand, thicker smoke is a pretty big issue. But every smoke that we see, we must know it is an indication of a problem. If it is an indication that the car is dealing with a problem, the exhaust or the engine is dealing with a problem. Thick smoke usually comes from the fault in engine coolant. I'm not a mechanic, but I tried to follow what what is the analogy when it comes to automobiles? It says it comes from the fault in engine coolant, which could lead to many serious problems. Now, smoke comes from the coolant and it can lead to many serious problems. Like it can damage your cylinder head, it can blow the gasket, it can crack the engine block, which might cost the driver quite a lot. Now, why do you see a smoke? It is because there is a problem. Is this smoke your friend or is this smoke your enemy? Without a smoke, you will not know there's a problem. I want us to understand, ladies and gentlemen, that without a smoke, you will not know that there is a fault in your engine coolant. Your car will just blow the head, it will just break the cylinder, it will just crack the engine block. But the minute you see the smoke, you know that the problem is going to be bigger if I don't stop this engine and take care of the problem. I want us to follow each other very well. Now, what your car is trying to tell you by the white smoke from the exhaust. White smoke from exhaust that looks like thin wisp is not as scary as it looks. Now, if you see a white smoke that looks like a thin wisp, it will not be as scary as it looks. I want you to follow this. I want us to follow this. In other words, it looks scary, but it is not scary as it looks. The accumulated condensation is simply finding a way out of the pipe. The accumulated condensation is simply finding a way out of the pipe. So what do you do? What must you do when you see a thin wisp smoke coming out of your exhaust? This says, let it go until it is cleared. Let that disease continue until it is cleared. Let that disease deal with the problem until the problem is cleared. A thin wisp smoke. Now, let's see what some other doctors and scientists are saying about disease. We must ever bear in mind that disease is never a positive entity. This is a reality. Disease is not a positive entity. Smoke from the car exhaust, it is not a positive entity. Even if it is a wisp smoke, it is not a positive entity, but always a negative quality. It is the absence of health or of the state which constitute that balance of functional duty we call health. It is the absence of health or of the state which constitute that balance of functional duty which we call health. In other words, when you see disease, you know that there is a miss in the balance. When you see disease, you know it immediately signals you that there is a problem that needs to be addressed. Now, ladies and gentlemen, in other words, disease, it is not the opposite of health. I want us to follow each other very clear here. Disease is not the opposite of health, but a poor state of health. That's what disease is. It is not the opposite of health. Disease does not say you do not have health, but it says you have a poor state of health. Just like darkness is not the opposite of light, but a state of poor light or absence of light. That's what darkness is. Disease, it is just a state of poor health. That's what it is. The British nurse This is Florence Nightingale. He's a British nurse, a social reformer, a statistician, best known as the founder of modern nursing. This is Florence Nightingale. It's an image of Florence Nightingale. She was also called the lady with a lamp. This is the lady that was taking care of soldiers, the war victims, all the soldiers that will come back from war injured and all those things. She's the one who was actually assisting. She was leading that project. Florence Nightingale. Let's hear what her principle is, Florence Nightingale. Florence Nightingale says, all disease at some point or the other of its cause is more or less a reparative process, not necessarily accompanied with suffering, an effort of nature to remedy a process of poisoning or decay, which has taken place weeks, months, sometimes years beforehand, unnoticed. What is Florence Nightingale saying here? Florence Nightingale is saying disease is a reparative process. Like the smoke that comes from the exhaust of the car, or like the wisp smoke that comes from the exhaust of the car, that takes care of the condensate. It is a reparative process. It's drying up, it's cleaning up the condensate from the engine exhaust. Now, Florence Nightingale said, disease is a reparative process. It is not necessarily accompanied by suffering. It is an effort of nature to remedy a process of poisoning or decay. Nature, by disease, by use of disease, in other words, by use of disease, nature is trying to bring about a remedy in order to deal with poison or decay. Disease is trying to cleanse the problem that has been brought upon the system. Now, she continued to say, this problem has taken place for weeks, for months, sometimes years beforehand. I have heard many people, ladies and gentlemen, I have heard many people claiming that they are not sick. I have heard many people claiming that they are fine, they don't have issues with disease. I want to say, all of us, somewhere, somehow, we carry some disease with us, but it varies in degree. All of us, we carry some disease. But Florence Nightingale says the disease that we ultimately see emanating itself through the system, it has not just taken place a few minutes ago. It is a process that has taken place about a week, about months, about years. It has been a recurring process. Now, ignorance is a bad habit, ladies and gentlemen. Ignorance is a bad habit. Ignorance of the laws of health, it is a bad habit. If we do not take time to take care of our bodies without knowing, disease will be ravaging our bodies. Now, once again, Mrs. White says disease is an effort of nature. In other words, she agrees, they are in agreement with Florence Nightingale, where Florence Nightingale says disease is a reparative process. It is an effort of nature to remedy a process of poisoning, an effort of nature to remedy a process of poisoning or of decay. Ellen White says it is an effort of nature to free the system. It is an effort of nature to free the system. In other words, disease is there to free the system. Disease is there to set the system free. In other words, the disease is saying, I am trying to cleanse, I am trying to deal with a problem. That's why I am here. That's what disease is. Now, Ladies and gentlemen, indeed, disease itself, as a general fact, may be said to be, in its incipient state, nothing more than an excess of healthy action to resist morbific causes. I know this may sound very difficult and complicated. It is a healthy action to resist morbific causes. And this excess being carried too far, if the excess is carried too far and continued too long, the overacting parts are brought into morbid condition and perhaps involve the whole system in sympathetic irritation. Now, it is a healthy action to resist the morbific causes. So disease, it is an action which by itself is a healthy action that has to take place in order to resist morbific causes. So, in other words, without disease, morbific causes will find it comfortable to sit in your system. Without disease, morbific problems, toxins, will find it comfortable to sit in your system. But disease is actually a way of saying you are not welcome in this environment. It is a way that says you are not going to be received in this environment. Then when disease does that, when disease fights that morbific cause, when disease fights that toxin, when disease strangles and fights with the problem, then it shows itself in the form of symptoms. But it started with the body trying to fight a problem. Now it says, and this excess being carried too far and continue too long, when the body continues to fight this problem and it is not getting rest because the problem continues, it's so much in the body that it is too much. The body continues to fight until the body says, I am tired. Until it says, I am tired. Because there's so much morbific matter in the body will fight until it says, I am tired. There is too much to deal with. Now, is disease your friend or a foe? I am tired. When that comes, when it starts saying I'm tired, then the body, then the morbific matter starts to move in without being challenged. And you don't want to reach that state, ladies and gentlemen. Through the agencies of nature, God is working day by day, hour by hour, moment by moment to keep us alive. God is working day by day, hour by hour, moment by moment to keep us alive, to build up and restore us. When any part of the body sustains injury, nature's agencies are set at work to restore soundness. How are they set at work? They are set at work, and this setting at work of nature, it manifests in the form of disease. But the disease working through these agencies, but the power working through these agencies is the power of God. The power working through the agencies, it is the power of God. All life-giving power is from God. When one recovers from disease, it is God who restores him. It is God who restores him. How does God restore us? God has given us laws. He has given us statutes. He has given us commands. He has given us instructions. He has given us the laws of health that we ought to follow. And when we follow those laws of health, God will restore us from sickness. He will restore us from disease. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This we shall continue here in our next session. There is more that we're going to talk about. We'll still talk about the laws of this body, the laws of life. We'll still talk about how disease gets to be dealt with by the system. May God bless us all. Thank you.